Welcome to Monocle on Fashion, a show offering exclusive insights and global perspectives on the fashion industry. On today's episode, we start the year by taking a trip to sunny Madrid to get the story on the revival of one of the country's most beloved luxury fashion labels, Delpozo. It's been exactly 50 years since Jesus Delpozo founded the brand in Madrid, starting with menswear, moving on to women's wear, and holding catwalk shows in Madrid, Paris, and Tokyo. He quickly made a name for himself for mastering color and volume, and in the 1990s, he also entered the world of perfumery, creating bestsellers such as Halloween Kiss. After the founder's death in 2011, Spanish group PYD acquired the business. But after a few years of investing in new collections, elaborate runway shows, and new shops, the group decided to cease operations, holding on to the perfume license only. Delpozo became yet another sleeping beauty brand, but luckily, Joaquín Trías and Enrique Melado came to the rescue, putting an investment group together to purchase the brand and bring it back to life with a new strategy. We catch up with Joaquín, who tells us what he thinks went wrong in the past and how he and Melado, who are now co-CEOs and co-creative directors, plan to do things differently. They are already off to a great start. They've enlisted renowned stylist Kate Young among their collaborators, signed partnerships with best-in-class boutiques like Moda Operandi in the US and Bunde Shop in Seoul. Plus, they got Tilda Swinton, who shares their love of gardens and romance, to appear in their film campaign. But what's perhaps even more impressive than this list of achievements is Joaquín's infectious joy and excitement when he speaks about the brand. He keeps returning to words such as obsession, love, and beauty, and speaks of his ambition to build Spain's ultimate luxury house, to own brand Madrid, and export it to the rest of the world. He's already well on his way, and in 2025, you're bound to see more of Delpozo. But let's hear directly from Joaquín, who starts by talking to us about the lessons from his earlier ventures and his decision to take the leap and invest in the Delpozo business.
I was very young, I was 25 years old, and at the beginning when we had to close a brand, I was like, wow, what's happened, And instead of being in a very negative way or thoughts, I was like, so what's happened? And I started analyzing everything, and that gave me so much strength to keep on going. I remember that when all that happened, when we had to close the company, the ex-vice president of Inditex, he was the president's right-hand person. He called me, he flew me to Arteixo in the north of Spain, where the Zara group is. And he was like, is it the moment that you were more willing to it? And I was like, wow, it's like, this guy is telling me it didn't work, but am I willing to keep on going and fighting? And that's a little bit all the experience and all the decision makings. It's being incredible for me right now in Delpozo, absolutely.
So it fueled your ambition in a way instead of dissuading you from going into fashion.
Absolutely, Natalie. Absolutely.
And what were some of the lessons as well that you learned from that first experience that you find useful now?
I think the most value one is to go step by step. That's the most important one. And also putting all the focus on the product. The product has to be brilliant. And then comes all the rest. Then comes all the communication. Then comes the fashion glamour, everything. And really, really knowing who your client is and what you think she's looking for, I would say. And then also where to put the money. I think that's a key for a fashion brand, because many times you think about just putting it into the communication part and like being like very loud. And I think there's always a moment for everything. And it's super important to put the money correctly on the right space at the right moment. I think that's key. Absolutely.
And having met you in Paris and seeing the first presentation, I think it's clear that this is exactly what you're doing with Delpozo. But before we get into all of that, tell me, why did you think that Delpozo was the right investment and the right project for you? Like you said, it was a sleeping brand, so there's a lot of work required to revive it and bring it back to life.
And this is a little bit, Natalie, like poetic for me. My grandmother, she used to be a model for Cristobal Balenciaga, and she met my grandfather at a Balenciaga show, at the Cristobal Balenciaga show in Barcelona. So I've always like grown up with this thing of Balenciaga, of another fashion brand, which was called Pertegas and Loewe, and all this magic that Spain has always had. And now I'm like, Delpozo, Jesus Del Pozo has done an incredible work. We're 50 years this year. It's like a lot of work for a company. And I'm really into, Natalie, like building like the Spanish fashion luxury brand. That is my objective. Because now Loewe belongs to a French group and Balenciaga also. And I think Spain like deserves that Spanish fashion luxury brand. And I think the job the property of the brand did in the past has been brilliant. The way they positioned Del Pozo, the aura they created, and where they focused that. So when I was thinking like, or doing a new brand or having Del Pozo, it's like Del Pozo has done this so good and in such a intelligent way that it deserves to be this Spanish fashion luxury brand.
And there is space, you said, for a true Spanish luxury brand. Is that something that you really want to highlight, the national identity and the heritage?
There's something that we're working on the team, and when I'm working with stylist Kate Young, who's working with Del Pozo, it's always about this, what is this, that super elevated fashion woman in Spain, and Kate is always asking me, like, tell me what is very like the really elevated things that happen in Spain, and what are those elements that we can introduce into the product, to the brand. And we really want to make like Madrid our space, and we want to own it. We want to own Madrid for Del Pozo and export it to the whole world. So we're always looking for this super special characteristics, about Spain to introduce in our product and in our imaginary, but in a super elevated way.
And how would you describe Spanish approach to style and to luxury? Like you said, Loewe is owned by a French group, and so is Balenciaga himself. He moved to Paris. For many designers all over the world, for many years, the dream was always Paris and ending up in Paris. So it's great that you want to stay on home turf and make Madrid the heart of the brand. What sets it apart? What's the style? How is it different in Spain?
Well, the thing is that in Spain, I would say there's two kind of fashion. We're very extremely used to that fast fashion created by Inditex and Zara and Mango. And then we have this super elevated woman. But in Spain, there is this concept of that I love, especially in Madrid and Barcelona, which is that extraordinary everyday. And this part of the population that really loves fashion, and that they're always like dressed like in a very special way, in a very extraordinary way, but in very realistic too, very useful. It's not kind of too much dressy or too much drama going on. It's like as Kate and I love to describe it, is like when I'm asked, what's the word for Del Pozo, for the Del Pozo woman, or what I understand in Spain that to be, it's like, it's pristine. Del Pozo is pristine. And that's what I really get from the Spanish woman, from that extraordinary everyday. It's like they are pristine.
That's great, and I think we do need a bit of pristine, but that can apply to every day.
Absolutely.
So tell me also, what did that process look like when you were thinking about taking over with the board of investors that you joined forces with? How did it all come together?
It was a bit of a nightmare because this kind of operations in Spain, investment and culture of investment, like in buildings and in construction and on tourism, but not very much on fashion and especially on luxury fashion. So trying to convince the investors was like it has been 2.5 years of talkings, of presentations, on deciding, because I also think it's extremely important to who you join with and the sensibility they have, because it's not only about the money, which is core and one of the most important things, but it's also on your investors letting you develop your vision, your idea. I approached, for me, one of the most important persons and women in Spain, which is called Inés Balmaceda, who has been the leader of all the investors, and she has done like a terrific work on that. And we joined, it's two family offices who are supporting Del Pozo. And we approached the owners of the brand and we started having meetings with them. So they were like super excited about the opportunity of relaunching Del Pozo, because for me, it was like that concept of sleeping beauty by the moment. So we reached to an agreement with the property. They still own a minority stake of the company, but one of the most important conditions was to sign with them a license of perfumery, which they are a group, like one of the biggest groups in Spain after Puig in perfumes. So we have that license with them. We have our panel investors, and we've built like a small team that we're fighting like crazy to put Del Pozo on where it deserves to be, I think.
Great. So the perfume side of the business is licensed by the owners who ran the brand before, and there's a new group that is now kind of working on the revival of the fashion element.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's exactly it.
And having dived deep into its history and also its more modern history as well, tell me what went wrong, or what were the challenges that had made the owners kind of put it to sleep and pause operations, especially of the fashion collections and the shows that they were hosting for a few years. Because quite recently, I remember attending Delpozo shows in London. There was a lot of love for the brand, a lot of positive feedback.
Yeah. I think, Natalie, that the reason is that they created this magical aura of the brand. It was everybody recognized Del Pozo, everybody loved Del Pozo. I always say that Del Pozo has that effect that when you see a piece of Del Pozo, you don't see like, you go like, oh, wow. And for me, that's the most important thing in fashion. That doesn't generate the wow effect, is that you have, for me, when you get to that point, is that you're doing things very, very good. No, but I think they created this huge aura around the brand. But I think the product and the price point was not the correct one. And they were in a niche of a niche, I think. In some occasions, they were even more expensive than some of the most luxury brands in the world. So when you get to that point, it's like the customer is like, they really think about the name brand, so they might decide to go to another one that have a little bit more history or a little bit more of some reasons. But I think that the great mistake was the price point and some of the difficulty that the clothing had. It was like lots of volumes, too much embellishment. And I think it was very stiff and not for a day to day or for an extraordinary everyday. It was just for determined occasions. And I think the product was too special to use it oftenly on your day to day, so that at the end that doesn't make the volume that you need to survive as a company.
And you've set out to address all of those issues, I think, having looked at your first collections. Tell me about the kind of silhouettes and signatures that you wanted to create when you started designing the first collections and the whole direction of the brand.
I love this question, Natalie, because this was something that I really talked when I was presenting the project to the investors, to all of them, is that in Delpozo, we have such an opportunity and such a white card for creativity. Because I identified Delpozo with two super clear premises, which are Delpozo is well known and known for its prettiness and for its color. Therefore, we are not based on a specific silhouette, on a specific volume, or a specific concept. You know, it's like, it's all about what we all understand about pretty. This is pretty, and this is color. And that gives us such an open range of creativity that we are so much enjoying, you know, because some volumes can be like a little bit more évasé, or some can be a little bit more constrained and straight, you know, but it's not about the silhouette in itself, it's about its impact, it's about its prettiness, it's about its color, you know, and that is the only concept we have in our creative studio. It has to be pretty all the time, you know. So for me, creativity in a creative way is just an amazing job.
And that's what the founder did so well, right? It was all
Absolutely.
about beauty and celebrating color.
And it's about being like that kind of magical moments, no? And those magical moments are only created with beauty. And in the world, there's got to there has to be a lot of beauty, you know? And that is like so inspiring for us and for Delpozo.
So we should expect a lot of beautiful evening wear, but also more practical silhouettes, right? That you can move in, some things that you can adapt into your daily life.
And I am obsessed with changing the way of the evening dresses, because I am in love with the creation of separates. I can imagine we will talk a little bit afterwards about Tilda, but when I was a few years ago, I would always watch this woman. I remember her going to all these galas or these award events, and so many people appeared in these beautiful gowns, but she would appear with a jacket and the trousers. And the visual impact she created was exactly the same as a person who wore this incredible, beautiful gown, you know? So now I am obsessed of, we have to create those separates that when you see them together, it's like the most incredible evening wear or the most incredible day wear, you know? And in Delpozo, we're really working on beautiful separates, and also on creating this identity, this new identity for the brand, always respecting its beauty and its color.
You really capture it there, that it is very modern approach to evening wear. And you mentioned Tilda Swinton, who you've admired from a distance, it sounds like, but then you've managed to very early in the brand's revival get her on board to wear your clothes and be part of your campaigns. How did you do that?
Yeah, that was super. Like I always say, and well, she also always said that it just had to be. We were in Paris presenting our first capsule collection for autumn winter, we did a very, very small showroom where we signed the deal with Moda Operandi. And suddenly her stylist, Jerry Stafford, came in the showroom and he saw the collection and he loved the collection. And there he said, I'm Tilda, a stylist. And we were like, wow, this is super exciting. And Tilda, by the time, she was in Madrid and she was doing Pedro Almodóvar's new film with Julianne Moore. And suddenly, like on a Monday at 9 a.m., I see a car stopping at the door and Tilda comes out, and I'm like, what the hell? And she came in the studio and she started fitting. And I was like, oh my God. And she fell in love. And we all started like talking about, she told us the story that her real passion and what she's dedicating all her efforts in her personal life was about creating garden and beauty, and we started talking about flowers and gardens and this and that. And suddenly we're like, why don't we build up a garden, the Delpozo's new garden, and she's like, I'm into it. And it all just flew like in such an easy way and beautiful, because she's been like the most inspiring, talented, but especially generous person. Is such a human person. It's like incredible.
And you bonded over a shared love of gardens as well and nature, which also features in your campaigns. Tell me a little bit about that.
As a Sleeping Beauty, we had like this imaginary of our garden being like abandoned, and it has got like all messy. And we wanted someone to reactivate the garden and bring it back to life and back to joy and back to beauty. So we created this story that it was Tilda coming into this abandoned, dark, kind of sad garden, and with her power and with her fight with nature and all things that can happen in life. And she goes into the sand and suddenly she starts bringing back to life all the flowers and all the garden. And that was much like the inspiration for the movie.
It's a true fairy tale. And tell me also, there's another woman that you mentioned earlier that I think is worth kind of talking about, your collaboration, the stylist Kate Young. How has your creative collaboration been like, and why is her participation part of your very quick success?
Well, when I had my own brand, my namesake brand, I used to work with Kate, and I've always been obsessed with her because she has such like a vision, like super straight. It's so like pure and so like intelligent when you talk with her, and when you discuss on the silhouette or in the colors or in the shapes or in the compositions, how she responds to you. It's like so inspiring, but you're like, wow, this is super intellectual. She really is putting like such a deep thought in what she's doing, I am obsessed the way she creates all these linings and all of these colors and how she combines them, and we're always like discussing and talking, but especially her intellectual part for me is like outstanding.
It's interesting because it is a very creative pursuit, but it sounds like you almost have a scientific approach to it, and it's so detailed and precise to get the exact look that you want.
Absolutely. That's exactly it, Natalie.
And we're speaking about the design element, but I guess craft and quality are equally important. So I wanted to also ask you about the process of rebuilding your atelier in Madrid. It is important to have the right people and to make things locally as well, right? So tell me about finding those people, rehiring them, and building a workshop out of Madrid.
When we started approaching like to build up the atelier, Jesus Delpozo and Delpozo has always had this incredible, beautiful craftsmanship. Like it was kind of couture. It was couture, in fact. But it was like sometimes it's very, very difficult to recover all these people. But when they heard that Delpozo was back everybody was so excited about it. So we have like this very content atelier inside the studio where we do all of the prototypes for the collection. And then we started contacting like all the other bigger ateliers that Delpozo used to have. And all the productions were there made, and it's in Granada in the south of Spain, and in Toledo, which is like an hour away from Madrid, and on also in Galicia, the north of Spain. And I remember that when we contacted the persons from Toledo, they were like, "Oh, this is so exciting! I'll go visit you." And suddenly, a complete family comes in the studio, like eight persons, because they really felt Del Pozo belonged to them, and they were so passionate about the house that creating that or recovering all that infrastructure has been like kind of very natural in a very natural way, and they are helping us grow and being able to deliver in the correct moment. It's been fantastic.
And I guess for you, those human connections and also the Made in Spain label are very important ingredients of the revival formula.
And for me, there's only one thing: it's passion. If I don't feel passion, for me, it's impossible to work. And what I feel in the studio, like when I'm with Belen in Paris or in New York, and we have like a good success and like a super important shop buys us or whatever, we're always like hugging, and it's like, wow, because that passion for me is what makes fashion, and I can feel that from our general director to the persons in the atelier. It's like we're all like on the same stage.
And that's true luxury in a way, when there is that human element and real relationships behind the clothes, not just a high price tag. And you mentioned also that taking things step by step is a very important element of the process for you, having also learned the lessons from your previous venture. And you're really doing that. You started with very small presentations, very intimate, held in Paris. And when it comes to retail, you had one partner, which was Moda Operandi at the beginning. Tell me about the strategy and your plans moving forward as well, now that the foundations have been laid.
Yeah, we started doing this capsule collection in New York, which we gave in exclusivity to Moda. And what I really wanted was to show the new line. And this is where Del Pozo is going, and this is what we want to maintain and what we want to put back into the world. And I have this thing that I learned from my background, is that my obsession is to first position the brand in a super elevated way. It's not about volume right now, it's about positioning. And we want to be in the most known, exclusive, exquisite points of sale that we are starting to achieve. We've had an incredible last season, summer, spring, where we entered the likes of Bundeshop, Club 21, Albright, also 4510 in Dallas. I mean, it was like 10 of the most dreamed retailers, wholesalers, sorry, that I've ever, like, in my presentations when I was pulling up money from the investors, I'm like, we have to be in Bundeshop and we have to be in 4510. And now we are in Bundeshop and in 4510 and in all these shops. So it's about, right now it's about positioning. And now we're starting to develop plans of like bigger presentations, the possibility of a show, keep on going with all our content. But we want to do it like in a very, we were having dinner last week in Madrid with Lucian Pache, who's our agency in Paris. And we were like, we have to be like exclusive, little, but super loud to the world, and that's exactly what we're trying to do.
And film is a big part of how you're communicating, right?
Yeah.
I know you created a film with Tilda Swinton, and it's a big part of how you're telling stories. Tell me why it's important at a time when a lot of brands, I think, are focusing more either on a show or on much faster content on social media.
Yeah, for us, it's like the most important thing is the storytelling. But we started with this movie, but what we really like is by not being like a very, very big company right now, we want to be very flexible. So we did this kind of movie. Next time, we will come up with probably something a little bit more different. We love like that moment of surprise. And so what's happening right now in Del Pozo? What is Del Pozo doing, or what are they going to come this season with? And we are really working on that, and like sometimes being a little bit more slow, sometimes being a little bit faster, sometimes giving a glimpse of something. And it's always about that. It's going to be always about that for Del Pozo.
And even as you grow, Madrid remains at the heart of it all, right?
Absolutely. And
It's
Madrid is booming right now.
exactly, that's what I was going to ask you. It feels like it couldn't be a better moment. So tell me, why do you think there's this momentum around Madrid, and how does it affect you and your work?
It's been so inspiring. A few years ago, when I used to travel to America or to some parts of Europe, and they asked me, "Where are you from?" I'm Spain, Madrid. Everybody talked about Barcelona. Nobody talked about Madrid, and now it's totally the contrary. It's everybody talking about Madrid, and it's become such an international place, but in a very cultured, organized way. It's not like messy. The places are opening, the cafes are opening, the restaurants are opening. There's a huge welcome to Latin America. And it's very inspiring because Madrid used to be like a very local, where you had to belong to your group or to the people from Madrid. And if not, you really couldn't develop yourself very much, or you were a little bit more lonely. And now it's totally the contrary. Like everybody's super open-minded. People are traveling all over the world, and that's giving a lot of richness to the city.
That was Joaquín Trías, co-creative director and co-CEO of Delpozo, talking to us from his studio in Madrid. And that's all for today's show. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. We have more big interviews and exclusive insights into the world of fashion planned for the new year. Today's episode was produced and edited by Lily Austin. I'm Natalie Theodosi. Thank you for listening.